We are moving on to year 7 in the Buffalo Bulls dynasty, after wrapping up the 6th and most successful year of our journey, seeing the Bulls finally win the MAC championship. It was 3 years in a row of playing in the MAC title game, and we finally won it. Took our first trip to the college football playoff, and we left it all on the field, winning 2 playoff games and ultimately falling to the only team that defeated us over the course of year 6 in the Michigan Wolverines. Today I'm going to be covering the offseason that was streamed just a couple days ago, and I'll set everything up for year 7. There will not be an additional offseason stream with practice gameplay. We are going to jump right into the new year come next week. But I wanted this to be the start of a new chapter in this series as we finally look to leave the MAC conference. I have talked a lot about moving to the Big Ten, but there has been a lot of feedback about moving to the ACC. So I did start up a poll before the stream began, and it ran for 24 hours, and there were over 1,200 votes. I will talk about that once we get to that part of the offseason, but the goal was to leave the MAC, join a larger conference, and prepare for a more challenging road ahead as we try to take this team to the top of college football. The MAC, I think, has given us everything that it could in this series, and we finally won it once. I think ideally we would have won it multiple times and then moved on, but I think that it is the right time. Now, like last offseason, we go into this one knowing that David Ogbonna has a chance to transfer because of the playing style deal breaker. We went through the exact same situation with the same style grade last year, and he stuck around. So that would be our first major event of the offseason. What is his decision? I did choose to buy the Tier 3 offensive line motivator in the coach abilities, but held on to the remaining points. I also wondered when it came to players leaving, could we see some early draft declarations? We have very good redshirt sophomore and junior players that could get drafted very high. And my rules are not going to change. If a player declares and they're projected to go in the top 3 rounds, I'm not going to convince them to stay. That's been a house rule that I will stick with. In the national championship this year, it was Michigan victorious over Texas Tech, 39-37, in what might have been a triple overtime finish. No surprise, it's Michigan going all the way this year with that amazing offensive line and running back combination. That is just such a tough team, and they beat us twice this season. But let's move on now to the players leaving stage. It kicks off the offseason. We had a small graduating class, but who else could be leaving? We see here Enrique Trejo, along with David Ogbonna, decide they are going to leave Buffalo for different reasons. Trejo declaring for the draft, projected round 3. Despite the very high persuasion chance, I cannot convince him to stay. Our number 1 receiver is gone, and our quarterback wants to transfer as well for an offense that can allow him to be even more productive. I wanted to persuade David Ogbonna to stay, but he is leaving the Buffalo Bulls after one of the best quarterback seasons on this channel ever. And that means we are likely looking at Ray Elway being our starting quarterback now going forward. And we have had to change quarterbacks nearly every year in the series. E.J. Colson is the only one who has started back-to-back seasons. And this move by David Ogbonna ensures the next 2 years will have unique quarterbacks to start the season. It's a tough way to open things, losing your quarterback after such a good freshman year. But that's the way it goes sometimes. He is moving on. 2 players from Buffalo get drafted, both in the 3rd round. Michigan had A.J. Knopf go in round 2, and then 3 centers and a guard got drafted. So this takes us into the offseason then, recruiting-wise, where I've been mostly wrapped up. We do have a quarterback incoming in Karifi Jeffrey. Knowing that Ogbonna had a chance to leave, Jeffrey was a target early last season, and this is exactly why. I don't think, however, he'll be ready to go as a true freshman. Now, looking at the transfer portal, because our playing style deal breaker tends to be lower for the passing game, it limits how many quarterbacks and receivers are interested in transferring. So my options at some spots are either thin or non-existent. And there wasn't going to be a move we could make at either position for this year. So I did put a few different targets on my board, but the roster has gotten better. And because these transfer players don't progress, it's a pretty high bar they have to clear to make it onto our team and even get a scholarship offer. So I ended up putting a couple players on the board that were intriguing. Mike Dugans is a tight end who I didn't know his athleticism here, but his blocking was excellent. And then Anthony Titus, who went to the same school as Dugans, both went to Purdue. I felt he was a good safety option. But overall, I was not going to make a huge splash in the portal like we did last year in adding Robert Shipman. Even Lorenzo Kashama, I didn't think was quite good enough for an offer because of how good our current centers are. And of course, all of our players would be developing while transfer players will not. I had all these points, so I did scout more quarterbacks just to add depth because our depth chart's very thin now. Eric Pacheco graduates, David Ogbonna transfers, so I want a backup option. And I did like Daron Fabulage from Cincinnati, Ohio. I made him a target. I had maxed out points on a handful of players, but 5 targets here in the final recruiting stages. We do add depth at D-tackle with Jeff Marciano, a receiver in Joey Tucker, who was a 3-star gem, and our success now in getting some players drafted has unlocked Master Motivator in the coaching tree. Here we see for Fabulage that Michigan State is now the #1 team, while we battle with Michigan for Mike Dugans. Of course, we were keeping an eye on what would happen with David Ogbonna. UNC, Memphis, and Louisiana Tech had all offered scholarships. He was favoring UNC. We bring in Anthony Titus from Purdue, a really solid safety that I think provides good depth, and Mike Dugans, you'll see his ratings here in a little bit. He's going to be a player for us this year. We do take over first place for Fabulage, while Memphis overtakes UNC for David Ogbonna. So some movement there with the quarterbacks. However, Daron Fabulage flips back to Michigan State, does not come to Buffalo, leaving us with a 19-player recruiting class, a very small one. We end up with the number 22 ranked class this season. I was also highlighting there Syracuse, top 5 class. They did a great job this year in recruiting. And for the UNC Tar Heels, Bill Belichick? Is he out there recruiting David Ogbonna deep into our dynasty? He has left us for a larger program and perhaps a large NIL deal. Now, I went to their roster, I saw, okay, he's not going to be their highest rated quarterback. I knew immediately for storytelling purposes, I was going to take care of that for him. There is a #1 receiver there, a good one in Tony Muamba, really good speed. He'll try to be his Oscar McNabb replacement, it seems. But team's moving in a new direction. And that kind of solidified that the ACC was going to be our move. As I ran the poll, 58% of the votes went to the ACC. And now our best quarterback of the series has also gone to the Atlantic Coast Conference. So this is going to be Ray Elway's opportunity that many thought he should have had last year as a strong-armed, great downfield passer. But does that fit where our offense is now? And how does he perform running the offense in the way that I think we have to build upon from last year? More underneath passing, balls out quick. The role of the passing game is to basically not screw things up. The offseason development was really good for guys like Jimmy Sampson. He sees a near 20-point overall jump. His elusive and receiving skills are really good, but we know this running back room is getting very crowded. At receiver, Without Enrique Trejo, we are desperate for somebody to step up opposite of Oscar McNabb, who does receive, I think, a 10-point boost to his overall. He has some amazing ratings. But between guys like Roger Grimm and Sean Blade, there needs to be an emergence. McNabb is destined for a lot of the targets this year with his incredible blend of catching, spec catch, and catch in traffic. For the offensive line, we did lose 2 of our starters from a year ago, but this still looks to be a very good line that perhaps is slightly lower rated than last year's. Now, the defensive line loses Jermichael Humphreys, but retains our best 2 pass rushers from last year, while developing 2 of our most intriguing young pass rushers, Stephen Makovica and Larry Wheeler. The front 4 should be incredible. The question now is just how do they perform against better competition? And I think they're going to do just fine, as the only team down the stretch that really handled us well was Michigan, with the best line in college football. In the secondary, it's very clustered here at cornerback, so you have to look at other ratings beyond overall to find your starters. I like where Devin Hester and Devontae Carrion are, and it seems we're finally going to have that athletic secondary that we've been building towards. It's taken some time to get these players and develop them. Our safeties, though, do seem to be a little less athletic, I think especially below average in the move to the ACC. We had to release 5 players going into the new year. I released Sean Prochet, who's basically a maxed out 66 overall, tight end Malik Evanson, then safety Miles Barlow. I had to cut Manny Monroe because our defensive tackle group is deep and he wasn't likely to play as a junior. And then our final cut is Orlando Roundtree, a young safety. For the first time in this series, I have gone into the custom conference tab, and we are taking Buffalo from the MAC, and we are moving to the ACC. These super conferences continue to grow. Now, there was some thought of taking Bowling Green along with us, but ultimately I just kept them in the MAC. It's good to have even numbers of teams in these conferences, and because we're further into this series now and there has been some real-life movement planned for the future, I decided we would then add those teams to the Pac-12 and reintroduce a Pac-12 championship. I'm not even sure if Wyoming is moving, but we had to get to an even number, so they made it there. And we end up with a slightly revamped look for the next year and beyond. I was definitely surprised to see them rank us number 1 in the preseason poll as we move to the ACC. We lose our quarterback, we lose our number 1 receiver, but we are excellent in the trenches, and there aren't a lot of holes on this team. Wide receiver is probably the greatest concern. Here with David Ogbonna and all other transfers, they don't develop when they move to a new team. Because I wanted Ogbonna to start, I decided to basically simulate his development. I looked at his caps, looked where there was upside, I added on to his awareness, 1 point into throw power, and then a couple points into a lot of the accuracy ratings until he would be the highest ranked quarterback at UNC to become their new starter. I really wanted to see us have UNC on the schedule this year, and this is a weird one. A week 1 game is scheduled against Florida State. Then we get Duke in week 3, and then no other conference games until week 7 where we face Cal. So it just shows you the absurdity of some of these conferences now. When you think of the ACC, you probably don't think of Stanford and Cal quite yet, but we play them. We do not play Syracuse, UNC, 2 of the teams I would have loved to have us face this year. I think our schedule sucks, and hopefully next year it can be done better. But let's get into some of the players and some skill caps now. We brought in the number 1 ranked player in recruiting, the first 5-star player of the Bulls dynasty, and that is DeMarco Lacombo, who is an 81 overall running back with impact development. Now, I don't think his caps are going to give him the highest ceiling, but he has a great starting point and skills that are easily going to make him one of the most intriguing running backs in our dynasty. As a power back, he is going to be special, starting his career with a boost to a 95 broken tackle, 92 trucking, 92 acceleration to go with it. I do have some gameplay of Lacombo here in this video, and you will see what he is capable of. He has great abilities as well. Now, Kevin Babineau. We have not been using him as a running back much. He hasn't played. Well, he's moving back to quarterback now, and he is going to be the backup to Ray Elway. However, if there is a serious injury to Elway, I am more likely to go to the true freshman, Karifi Jeffrey. But as we sit right now, Elway has the best blend of arm strength, accuracy, not the best mobility, but he is going to get the job here right away. And I think that Karifi Jeffrey becomes now the quarterback we are attempting to develop into a multi-year starter. It's unfortunate the caps are that bad on his accuracy, but I still think he could be a very good starting caliber quarterback. And by the way, he is a left-handed passer. At wide receiver with Oscar McNabb at 86, he is far and away our best option there. However, his route running has never been anything special, it's just no one can keep up with him. We do have some players with good short route running, not many with good medium route running, but most of our receivers have good release and there are things to like. Neil Gold has some of the best caps I think we're going to see. As a physical receiver with good athleticism, usually these players don't have great route running, but he actually has the upside of getting there. Joey Tucker was brought in as a 3-star route running gem receiver, but I think his caps are likely making him a cut candidate next year. Nelly Jarrell, the elite development tight end, I thought might be a day one starter, but now I think he's likely to sit this year and develop behind Mike Dugans. At center, this is Terrence Surratt, as I'm always looking to add some intriguing offensive linemen. We have an IQ cap that's a little bit, troubling. But I think most players like him and Addison Rhodes with the right luck could still end up being starters or top backups with this team. So I'm just always building depth there. I've had some series in the past where I kind of lost track of the O-line after a while, lost too many players in one year, and then suddenly I'm like down an entire 2 tiers in ability there, and I can't let that happen again. So I try to bring in 3 to 5 guys a year, and players like Melvin Connors, I think, do have a starting future. We just got to wait for their turn. Rashawn Hayden as a 79. The caps don't look great on the surface, but power move, finesse move, plenty of potential there. Not worried about that. Eric Sharp, I think these caps are an issue if he's to get playing time. Same is true for Jeff Marciano. So a few of these players are already looking like cut candidates, as it's very competitive on this roster, and just getting down to 85 in some years is difficult. I don't like Kamani Ringo's caps very much. His run stopping is capped out and his coverage is super low. Franco is kind of similar there with a little bit better coverage right away. And then cornerback Dennis Hollis, man coverage is capped pretty harshly there. We'll see about him. Alani Cheeseman. The caps are not great for a high-rated recruit, but safety is not our most competitive spot. Of course, DeMarco Lacombo is going to see some early playing time, and he has some skills that are really special. The Platinum Armbar ability is one, but he also is a top 5 player in terms of the broken tackle skill, and he's never played a snap of college football. So that was the big win for us in recruiting last year. It does not feel like the best class that we've had in terms of the players coming in with high upside, good skill caps, and good development. This was, I think, a little bit of a down year. But it's time to restart the grind all over again. And we're seeing even more players interested in that 5 and 4-star tier. We are a 3-star program now, so we have more hours to spend. We are a more prestigious team, and we only have 7 seniors this year. I thought last year was light. We graduated 12. We have a 7-player class graduating. So we have to be very picky. I'm going to be looking at our current roster and projecting which players are easy cut candidates. That way I know how many players of room do I really have for next year. Because as we sit currently, I think a dozen. I can probably find like 5 players with low caps that are not going to be starters that are easier to cut. And I'll look for, if it's more than 5, I'll know that once I actually look. But that's just kind of my ballpark number. A dozen to 15 players for this class makes sense. And we're going to focus primarily on 4 and 5-star players that make us better and more competitive within the ACC. I think I have to prioritize gems, players with really good abilities. And now it's not just like what 4 stars want to come to Buffalo, but it's who really stands out and can wow us. I did play in practice mode for a little bit during the stream, so here are some highlights from that. The main thing we all wanted to see was number 24, DeMarco Lacombo. How good does he play in this practice, and what is it like having the number 1 ranked running back in recruiting now on this team? I'll say what stands out immediately is that his acceleration for a power back is really good. It is a 93, so while his top speed at an 88 is nothing special, he gets to that top speed relatively quickly, and he can still force players to take bad angles, and he's able to maximize those first few steps to get in the optimal position, and then broken tackle, stiff arm, all those skills can begin to take over. You're also seeing Ray Elway here, and he's going to miss some of these throws that you don't want to see him miss, obviously, but I still believe he is our best quarterback going into the new year, and I do have other quarterbacks here with some highlights, some Karifi Jeffrey, and he does have a lot of potential. There's Oscar McNabb flying to the end zone. But overall, my plans this year with the offense are to build upon last year in the best way we can. Continue to run the football, be very multiple in the running game because we should be running 35, 40 times a game at times. And you can't just call inside zone for all of those. So having good power plays with these guards, of course, some inside zones, some stretch, maybe some quarterback running from time to time. But last year was just refreshing. We were good on third down, didn't take a lot of sacks, didn't turn the football over. Like the opposite of every other year across every other series on this channel. Not counting year 6 of the Minnesota Dynasty, perhaps. But it felt like a team with a sense of direction, right? And I really enjoyed it. I got comfortable with it. And now I think we have a receiver skill set that demands we stick to that plan. With Oscar McNabb, you can tell him to do anything, he'll probably be fine. But we cannot ask these receivers beyond him in a tougher conference to go out and beat great secondaries one-on-one, make tough plays, 10-plus yards down the field. It is not our game. The screens will continue, the RPOs, the simple plays and concepts, scrambling when that first option isn't there on certain plays, and then leaning on this offensive line and running game. Those should be potentially even better this year. Again, a lot of this comes down to how we handle the jump in competition. No longer are we facing half of our conference schedule where they have like one receiver who's rated above a 75. Like, teams are going to be able to score on us a lot more this year, and it might not be as easy to carry these leads and just run the ball all day. I'm expecting tougher games and for us to be in situations where we got to score late or we're going to lose the game. We had a bunch of multi-score wins last year, and it's why we have left the MAC. We would probably be steamrolling the majority of our conference schedule, and it just wouldn't be interesting to watch. And we're looking at now a little over 4 months until the next game, and I think we can get through 4 more years. I'd like those 4 to be in a tougher conference, and it's just the right time to move on for the storytelling purposes of the series. So our first game of year 7 will be against the Temple Owls. We will also face Army for the first time in this series, as they are based in New York. We will face Iowa as a Big Ten opponent this year, and then a team we've developed a rivalry with from the MAC in Bowling Green is also on the schedule. It's going to be all over the place, though, with our conference games and not really getting into the meat of our conference schedule for a while. But I'm excited for a new journey, a new challenge, and to see if we can continue to compete on the national level now. The MAC gave us an easier route to the playoff because we were able to easily make it to the MAC championship game. If we won, we were going to go to the playoff. Now, this is a much tougher conference to try and win. And if we don't win the conference, can we still be among the top 12 teams? Going through some position groups here again, and you'll notice that at receiver, for the receivers who are going to play, there aren't many that have very high catching ratings. That is an immediate concern for me. There's going to be less room for error playing in this ACC schedule. So a little bit lower route running than we're used to, lower catching. We have really one guy that stands out. But for route running at tight end, Kyle Teal has developed really well, and I'm interested in him being our number 2 tight end. So Mike Dugan's 78 run blocking, 84 speed. He's a starter, but Teal with his route running might be our best tight end too, leapfrogging Morgan Scarborough. Here we have Carlos Harms, and I noticed that his route running is really good, and given our receiver situation, a move there is intriguing. Now, his catching ratings, his release, that stuff is super low. But there's a chance I end up moving him to receiver next offseason to develop. Along the offensive line, the player that stood out to me would be Charles Rust, and the plan is for him to become the starting center right away. He just had way too many high ratings, including the best overall pass blocking rating. His run block is also really good, 96 run block power. For the defense, there are so many great pass rushers and some different guys I'd love to see come off the bench. Like Scotty O'Shaughnessy might not play much, and he has 90-plus finesse move. For defensive tackle, I think that we could mix in Amir Quarterman a little bit this year, as he does have 83 power moves. I was a little disappointed, though, to see that he barely developed last year, even with elite dev and great caps. It's kind of competitive here at linebacker because so many players have developed well. Artie Ernsberger has played in more games than anybody on this defense, actually. I think primarily as a special teamer. But Jamal Harper developed really well. He might end up being next to Leon Edmond when we go to our sub-linebacker packages, which is like all of them nearly. And then I continue to be intrigued with Brian Dragosevich, and this year I'm going to unleash and see what he can do. He will get some starting playing time as an outside linebacker. As an 83, he can still get even better from here, and he can do a little bit of everything. In the secondary, Byron Gammon will start once again, but I have decided that we are going to have Devin Hester start opposite him on the outside, as he has better zone coverage than anybody at cornerback. And we are going to have Devontae Carrion as the starting slot because he has 85 man coverage, 99 speed. I think there's a lot we can do with him. Gives us options on third down, whether it's blitzing, playing man coverage. It's going to be nice to have athleticism at cornerback that can match opposing receivers. At safety, I worry primarily about our best safeties only having 85 and 86 speed. That's a little bit slower than I would like. If it becomes an issue, we might move a guy like Carlos Harmon into a starting role because he has more range combined with great zone coverage. How does that play with a 63 awareness? I guess we'd have to see. But if we need more speed, we have some options. To get this season underway, we are the #1 ranked team, but the ACC has a ton of teams ranked inside the top 25. I was of the mind that the Big Ten was a stronger conference in that regard, but we actually have more ranked teams than the Big Ten. I went to look at spending our coaching skill points, but I think we're going to wait a little bit longer because if I win one more rivalry game, which week 1 is against our rival Temple, I will have the ability to go into the architect tree and get to level 2 where I can have a chance to raise skill caps. And I think at this point, I think it's one of the only things missing in our player development. But I do have a jump start now on recruiting for this year, and as these battles look better and we see who really likes Buffalo, I will go into greater detail with these players. Ben Van Roten, 5-star, gem, receiver, bumped us up to #1. His ratings are phenomenal, and we do have some really good 5-star targets already that have us in their top 5. So I think we're going to be able to bring in really good talent this year. Here's Keenan Cleveland, man, 97 speed. Imagine him and DeMarco Lacombo in the same backfield in the future. That would be unbelievable. So I'll go into more depth in future videos, but know there are some really good gems, some amazing prospects that are already showing Buffalo a great deal of interest. I think going into next year, we have to look at finding some safeties that are maybe more versatile and can match the athleticism of what we're going to see in the ACC. Given the way wide receiver is on this team and some of our players' caps, I feel like we need more there. And I have, I think, 3 options right now with us ranked highly on their boards and they're 4-star or better. But I am excited to see what the next chapter of this journey looks like. Big change moving on to the ACC, but it was the right time, and I do think the team is ready. We are exceptional in the trenches, and that is the starting point. We just have to see if this level of competition is tougher on the defense, if the offense has enough. As long as we can stay healthy and have luck on our side there, I believe we're going to be just fine. But we're relying a lot on Oscar McNabb, but do have now a 2-headed monster in the backfield with Lacombo and Meyer. Both are going to play and both ideally get over 120 touches each this year. I think they are both going to be double-digit touch per game guys. And it's nice their skill sets complement one another. Meyer is one of the most explosive speed acceleration running backs. Lacombo, I mean, it goes without saying, perhaps the best power back we're going to see if things go as planned. And we will get everything underway next time, everybody. Buffalo takes on Temple in the Year 7 opener, and then we're jumping into our first ACC game against Florida State. Can't wait to see what's on the way. Leave your thoughts down below. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed and subscribe to the channel because there is much more Buffalo Dynasty to come. I will see you all next time. Have a great day.